Hey Alex, how are you? It's so good to see you.
Hey Angela, I'm doing so well. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so happy we finally got a chance to do this. And this is like we were talking earlier, like we kind of feel like we know each other already through like the world of socials and the internet, but now this is our first time actually like meeting and talking and we get to do this on this platform. So, I'm excited to chat with you today.
So excited about it too. And yeah, I was telling Angela, I felt like I got to know her a little bit through her content and was just complimenting how transparent she is. So I was coming in being like, I know Angela a little bit, but I get to see her face to face. So yes, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm excited to see you next week, or the team next week at the Culture Impact Lab. I know
Yeah.
you're gonna do a little bit of an introduction, but for those of you who don't know Alex, he works for a company called Vibrant Yoga, and they have been huge supporters of Call for Culture, and we're partnering. You all are sponsoring some nourishing activities for our participants, including some chair yoga, some chair massages. If you think about, I think a lot about conferencing these days and how we're so focused on kind of the logical, cerebral part of conferences, where in reality we need time to relax. We need some brain space, and it's really important to us that we have kind of these nourishing, pouring back into ourselves so that we can learn and integrate the knowledge. So I will shut up and let you do an introduction, and we'll jump into it.
No, that's awesome, and I think it's we often see the taking a step back as a fundamental part of enhancing the logistical, the logical, the cerebral part of the equation, which is part of our mission and what we try to educate folks around. It's actually not a step back, even though it feels like it's a pause, and it is a pause in
Yes.
time, but it's actually a faster way forward. But yeah, we absolutely love what you do. At Call for Culture, and more than happy to be a supporter of the event. So, anyway, yes, hey everybody, my name is Alex. I am the project manager at Vibrant Yoga. We are a corporate and a private wellness company around the Chicago area, but do also work with folks around the world virtually. But a lot of our clientele are in Chicago, and we like to go in office and go in homes and help folks there. So that's a little bit about me. Do you want me to kind of share about my background too, or?
I would love that. Yeah, and maybe
Yeah.
what makes you human, because that's something that, I mean, I know we want to jump right into the work, but tell us a little bit more about you and the work side and the human side of Alex.
Yeah, totally. So I guess semi-work side, I come from the fitness world. I've just had such a drive to help other people. And I think I realized helping other people with their health and their wellness was such this hugely impactful thing that I could help folks on. And I just had this initial drive to follow that. And so I got a degree in kinesiology and was a personal trainer for a few years and did that route. And then I started teaching the trainer, coaching the trainer. I taught at the National Personal Training Institute, and I also ran an online business development program for fitness professionals. And that's where I've really found my love for coaching the coach. And it's also what kind of shifted me into more of the business side of the equation. I've always had that sort of natural interest as well. I remember I would set up like stores when I was a kid and sell my parents back the things that they would bought me and be like, 25 cents for this cup that you just bought me last week. But as I've always kind of had that entrepreneurial drive
Mm.
inside of me. And so I think once I started to recognize that I could be in this fitness and health world and still help people directly, but potentially even help more people by coaching the practitioner, I just really my fire was ignited at that point. And I've been doing that ever since. So I've done a variety of things in the business world on the fitness side of things. I'm a lifelong learner. I'm interested by a lot of different things. Like I've led research and development, and did prototype testing and user testing, and commitment tests, and sort of did all that stuff. I managed a PT certification company, which was really
Mm.
interesting. And then I've also worked a little bit in the non-fitness world too as an operations manager. But admittedly, coming back to Vibrant I was like, this is the health world is where I need to be. It's I just have too much interest and passion in it to leave it. And I found my interest in business is there, but when I'm not applying it to health and fitness and
Mm,
wellness, I lose a little bit of that
that's
passion for
fair.
me. So I'm very happy to be back in this space.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and I mean, we could talk like all day more broadly about wellness at work. We had somebody earlier in this season who we were talking about more about mental health at work, right? And how we have to think about these things at an organizational level. And I think also, physical health, well-being, also have a place in the conversation. So, I mean, looking less for a business case, but more of like, what is the current state of things as you're seeing it, as you're going into these organizations. What is the need? And I will just mention, I've worked with vibrant yoga in another life when I was also in house, so I've been on
Mm.
the other side of working with you all, and I do really appreciate the kind of sustainability focus, where it's not just like, hey, a yoga class is going to fix all of our problems. But tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing, kind of the current state of things, and then how vibrant yoga maybe looks at this a little bit differently,
Yeah.
and like longer term sustainability wise.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and love the focus, because it's almost like if you're not thinking about longer term and sustainable actions, then everything is just checking the box once, or
Mm-hmm.
is just vying for a short term solution. And sometimes it's just putting the lens on of, is this a short term solution or is this a longer term solution? And sometimes we're so craving to just like, we just need to check the box, and this kind of leads into the
Mm-hmm.
state of things as we're seeing it. Is there's an increased awareness, I'll say, that, we have shirts that say wellness has an ROI, or there's an ROI to wellness. I'm sorry, Masha, if you're listening, I butchered that. But there's an increasing understanding of that, I think. That's a huge a message of ours, which is, if your employees every day are on edge, or are living, are stressed day to day, are nervous to make mistakes, are, really just not living a life of well-being when they're at work, it's going to impact everything that you do. Your people are the backbone of your work. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's an increasing awareness of that, which I think is huge, and I think it's slowly evolving from this, well, wellness initiatives are the first thing to cut. That's still, certainly that happens. And but it's viewed as this supplemental, this extra sort of piece of the pie. And it's still that, there's still a lot of people and a lot of organizations who see it like that, but that's shifting, and we've noticed that the past couple of years when we're talking to organizations of, hey, we know we need to do this, and we didn't even, maybe they've been following us or not, but oftentimes we have to convince them of that, or they're the starting point of, that these problems that you're mentioning can actually be solved by thoughtful wellness initiatives that like actually consider your people.
Mm-hmm.
So with that though, with the increased awareness comes kind of, I think, that, well, let's just do something, and then that's where it's kind of a free for all now moving forward. Okay, we need to
Yes.
do something. What if we have a pizza, like some free lunch every Thursday or whatever it may be, and let's just do that. We're checking the box on in the executive meeting. We can say, yep, we're doing wellness stuff, but there's the disconnect between doing that and then actually assessing, is this having the impact that you think it's having? Are you measuring it in any way? Or even, are you asking folks? Or even,
Yes.
did you ask folks before you did this thing to have any, or was it all just, what was the drive to check the box? And so we
Mm-hmm.
love this increased awareness that there's a real ROI to wellness, and like, it's not taking a step back, it's a pause to take a step forward. Like, people are recognizing that more, but then the actual tactical side of things is where it gets a little bit trickier. And understandably, I mean, if I know how it feels to be an executive in a company and want to do these things, but you have so many other things going on, your plate's full, you have
Mm-hmm.
50 other priorities that you have to focus on. I empathize. I understand that it does feel good to just check the box, but it's just not a sustainable route oftentimes. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, I say it's not worth it, but sometimes that act of checking the box, when it actually doesn't have the impact on employees, can actually be harmful sometimes. It can actually send the wrong
Mm-hmm.
message.
Yeah,
So
and it
anyway,
becomes wasteful from a, talk about ROI and investment perspective. And so what I hear you saying is, and this goes for like any organizational culture initiative, is ask your people. I mean, it's just like it's that simple. And I think sometimes what I notice is, CEOs, they'll read a book or they'll hear something on TV or they'll hear something and they want to jump on it. And so, asking your people, understanding what they need, when it comes down to this, like when I think about wellness initiatives, a lot of it is like time and accessibility.
hmm
And, the reason why I think, you know, uh, uh, unfortunately, a lot of times I'll talk to CEOs and they're like, well, that's not my job to provide everything for my people. But it's like, yes, and it's also an opportunity to provide accessibility when for those who don't have access perhaps to these types of services, or maybe they're not even introduced to it, and they become introduced to it the first time at your organization and it changes their life or it changes their perspective on what wellness means. And so yes,
certainly.
I think you have so many opportunities as an organization, a responsibility, also knowing there's a lot of like social support structures that aren't working right now. So
hmm
what can you do? We have a loneliness epidemic, we have a mental health
Yeah.
epidemic, we have all these things that are happening more broadly. What can you do in your sphere of influence, and really listen to your people to understand what they need and what they need access to,
Yeah.
and then kind of shape your programming around that.
It's such a good point. And I often find that, the organizations want the dedication. They want, hey, you're going to spend a lot of time with us. Well, then the how you support us from a wellness perspective should align with that. It's almost the like
Mhm.
you want the dedication up near the top, and if that's the
Yeah.
case, then we're going to be spending a lot of time here, and maybe this is my only avenue, like you said, to getting these services, or even being aware that I should be thinking about things in the first place, or that when I'm waking up in pain every day, there's reasons for that I have some control over potentially. I mean, you're right.
Hmm.
There's 100%, and yeah,
Hmm.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, when you're talking to organizations, like you said, there's going to be the subset that are just like, we want to do this, and it's a check the box, and it's like, programming that's not really tethered to anything else.
hmm
In some cases it's like us, who are like, hey, we have a very specific goal of creating an experience for people over 2 days, and we know that this is an important part of the experience.
Yeah.
And then there's like maybe like a third category, which is, again, these people who are understanding that this is a more sustainable model in the grand context of maybe benefits or perks or culture change. So like, how are they shaping programming? Does it look like an assessment with employees to see like what they need access to? Is it like a grouping of certain types of um, programming? Like how are people shaping that experience within the
Hmm.
workplace for longer periods of time?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And you're so right. A lot of people come to us and like they have the desire to do it, and they're like, we know that we don't want to check the box, but we don't know what that thing is that we
Yes.
should be doing. Definitely the third category for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of times they have a really good idea of how their employees are feeling on a day-to-day basis, and whether that's
Mm.
through like previous assessments that they've given, where they're like, hey, we did an organizational wide assessment around stress, around mood, around physical discomfort, things of
Mm.
that nature. And we noticed that they're way higher than we would have guessed. And, obviously huge props to those organizations who are measuring that and wanting to make changes off of that. That's very often the starting point. Some realization of, wow, this is not like either the well-being is more important than we thought, or it's lower on the it's less full than we thought amongst our employees. And then from there, that's really where we work with them and say, okay, let's see where we can what makes sense as a starting point. And if they're
Mm.
coming to us saying, hey, we've learned our employees are more stressed than we want. They, it was a 6 out of 10 average on this assessment. We definitely want to get that lower. Hey, great. Like, let's learn about the nature of your work. What are they doing all day? What would make sense
Mm.
first from a part educational perspective, we often start with like these wellness workshops, which are often 15, 30 minutes of education, but mostly movement. So we say, hey, you should be thinking about these things first and
Mm.
foremost. And then let's show you how you can actually build this in sustainably. Usually right at your desk, no equipment, no space, because really a lot of this requires intentionality as opposed to
Yes.
do the right tactics or do the right exercises. It's not that. It's you need to provide the knowledge to the employees that this is valuable,
Mm.
provide the space to allow them to do it, and actually support them in doing it. This is one thing to say, we want you to do this thing, but by the way, if it gets in the way of your work, no. It's like, well,
Okay.
now you're there, you have competing messages and priorities. And then if the leaders aren't living it either, well, then that's also going to trickle down into the employees. They're
Mm-hmm.
also not going to feel so. There's a lot that we, depending on sort of how that initial conversations go, we might hone in on something a little bit different depending on where they're at, including, by the
Mm.
way, specific wellness workshops for executives. I mean, sometimes it's, hey, we like if you all who are running the company or even hiring leaders to run the company are not embodying this mentality, are not living, a healthful life yourself, and there's boundaries, we can't, it's not, hey, you have to live a super healthy life, but if you're walking around stressed and frantic and lost every day, and you're not enjoying what you're doing, and that's 100%, no matter the words that you say to your team, it's that will bleed through in a lot of different ways, including how you treat them, how you respond to them, how you treat yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we start there.
Mm.
But oftentimes it's let's come and educate the team, and then as a first step and inject movement where it makes sense. And then the next
Mm.
conversation becomes, what is the sustainable path here? And again, this looks different for everyone. And I apologize for kind of staying high level, but,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, it might be your people are moving and active, they're a construction company, let's say, for instance, like you might need ongoing monthly like tissue work, a massage,
Mm-hmm.
and then so it's like, okay, we have our wellness workshop, and we've educated, we've given them the foundation, and then now we're stepping in on a recurring basis to directly impact these problems that you came to us with, and then we
Yeah.
measure.
Yes.
And we say,
Yeah.
did it actually impact what and we do that
Mm-hmm.
consistently. And if we ever find that, hey, we're noticing stress and discomfort and mood and things of that nature haven't been changing, or heck, they're going up, which is quite the opposite of what we want, then
Mm-hmm.
we adapt. And so it gives us that
Mm.
information. But I feel like I'm rambling now.
No, it's great. And, it makes me think about, again, we had another podcast episode talking about like wellness at work more broadly from like a systematic standpoint.
Mm,
And one of the things the term that got batted around was something called systems of choice.
mm,
How do you create these moments where if you're talking about like a perk or a benefit or something that the organization is offering, and how do you make it clear that you have choice around how you engage with that, but the
yeah,
choice is there and it's available, and it's accessible.
yeah,
And then also to your point, I think there's equity and understanding what people actually need to get to a better place of wellness, whatever that means for that person.
yeah.
You've got a spectrum of people, right? You've got people like who are very focused on movement, and maybe their focus is more on like, I need a massage, or I would love to
Mhm.
take a strength training class, versus someone who just needs to move like an inch more, like every day. They need a standing desk. They need,
Totally.
some yoga classes or opportunities.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is, sometimes this conversations like this can get misconstrued as like, you can't just throw a class at somebody. And it's
Mhm.
like absolutely true. Like this has to be a conversation in the context of the needs of your people, which is
Yeah.
kind of where we started.
Right. Exactly. Or sometimes, I mean, just to piggyback off of sometimes they need this, sometimes they need just a little bit more movement. Sometimes, and it kind of goes back to the, hiring leaders that also are living this
Mm-hmm.
mentality. It's like, sometimes they just need a genuine, how are you actually doing today? Like in a
Mm-hmm.
space for transparency and a non-judgmental place to feel like they can have thoughts and feelings and
Yeah.
emotions that aren't fully productive or fully performance based.
Mm.
We see that as a byproduct benefit of the pause, relax, breathe. It's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that's all they need to
Yeah.
shift work. Is like, wow, they actually do care about me, and they do care about
Mm-hmm.
how I'm feeling on a daily basis. They don't just leave the free fruit in the kitchen and say, have fun.
Right. Have a banana today.
Right, right. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, that's better, I guess, than not getting a free banana, but
Right.
it doesn't go as far maybe as something.
Yeah, and it lands kind of flat.
Land's kind of
And I think the other piece that we have to realize is the benchmark, the baseline for these sorts of offerings or accessibility around some of these offerings is getting raised. I mean, I'm of the millennial generation, so I'm like old news at this point. But
I'm with you.
even I'm yeah. So millennials, we had an expectation, and that's like kind of like where things started a little bit,
Mm,
right? Where it's like, okay, work is not just a paycheck. Like
right.
I want to be in an environment that is pouring into me physically, mentally. It should be a rewarding space. And then you had folks like Google, for example, who kind of took it too far and were like, we're going to offer everything so you never leave.
Right.
And now we're the pendulum swinging where it's saying like, actually, I don't want to be in a office all day, but if I am there better be some reason to bring me there that I'm not getting here at home,
Right.
right? If I don't have space to do, let's say, yoga, or if I don't have the means to do that, like if my company offers that, that's a huge perk. And it's a huge opening of a door to say, I can now have access to this. Or if I never even thought about certain types of activities as beneficial to me, and then I start doing them, again, world opens up. But
Totally.
now we're going to Gen Z, and now we have Gen Alpha, who the expectations are like, this is like basic. This
Hmm.
is like talking about mental health, talking about
Oh,
opportunities and accessibility to movement throughout the day. Like it's not even a conversation. It's like, if you're not offering it, like are you a dinosaur? Like what is
totally.
happening? So
Totally.
like, are you seeing some trends in like
Yeah.
generations or intergenerational trends?
Such a good question, and it's so fun to think about. Yes, definitely, and you're so right. It kind of did start. I mean, maybe this a lot of generations say this, but it felt like it did start with us a little bit of
Yeah.
like, because I think of my
We'll take
parents.
credit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all millennials, of course. I
Hmm.
mean, but like I think about my parents who are kind of like the traditional, like started work when they were 50, and you work hard, and they're that generation, and then that's kind of like how I was raised. But then you realize, wait a second, it doesn't need to be like that. And you're like, actually, it so doesn't need to be like that. And I think it's this understanding of like there's always this work life balance. There's work on one side, there's a life on one side, and I think how the
Mm.
mentality is shifting is there's life and we have different aspects of life, work being one
Yes.
of them, relationships being one of them, spirituality being, our environment, anything that we want to think about is an aspect of life. And so I think what I've been noticing is less separation, I should say, between the work and the life. And it's all life. And
Hmm.
I know there's the work life integration that's almost becoming a buzzword now.
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
but I think it's a lot of that, which is like, I don't want to completely halt 100% of my life to do this job and then come back to life in the spare time that I have afterwards. I think
Yes.
that mentality is very Gen Z, Gen Alpha is like,
Hmm.
huh? And then I don't get to enjoy my life, enjoy retirement until I'm 65. It just, there's this, it's becoming common sense, I think, to those people. And, myself too, that doesn't make sense for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've also realized it does make sense for a lot of people, honestly. And taking this entrepreneurial route, I'm like, sometimes I wish I just had a 9 to 5 and did the
Right.
predictable
Yes.
route. But yes, I'm totally seeing that, and that
Mm.
fuels a lot of my personal journey and work as well. I've never had a regular job in my whole life. I've started just in this. I don't want to just have work here and life here. I want life, and maybe I do a little bit of work. I do a little bit of
Hmm.
that. So I do think that that's been
Yeah.
evolving. I think a little bit more.
Yeah, I think the agency meter around people and how they design their lives
Mm,
has there's a realization that you do have all these options now,
Mm.
right? You can go the entrepreneur route, you can build a business, you can do projects on Fiverr, you can you can do social media, you can be an influencer. Like there's so many
Yeah.
options now, and unfortunately, and this is what I always talk about, is workplaces are always at the tail end of
Mm.
change. So they're still talking, like I cannot even tell you how many times I've been with leaders and they're still talking about millennials, and I'm
Oh.
like, listen, I am damn near 40.
Yeah, I was,
All my friends have had kids who are teenagers. They've been married twice.
yeah.
Like we are middle aged now. We are old news. Like we're the
Yeah,
ones in leadership who are talking
exactly.
about Gen Z. Like we are such old news, but you have to realize like there are these like tensions every so often that happen when things are happening in the world, things are happening between belief systems, value
Hmm.
systems,
Hmm.
and progress always wins.
Yeah.
And so I think people are kind of like still stuck in the past, and I think the speed of change is happening much more quickly
Yeah.
because of things like technology, because of COVID in particular. That was a huge
Mm.
realization when it came to like health and mental health and wellness, and
Mm.
realizing that work can be a source of harm
Mm.
for all those things.
Yeah, totally agree. What have you found, Angela? I'm curious, like, because I
Yeah.
completely agree with you that there is. It's so funny you mentioned the talking, because I even us talking about Gen Z feels like that's in the past now. Like that's not even a
Yes.
worthy
Yes.
conversation anymore.
We gotta move
Um,
on.
have you found anything either societally or culturally or even tactically that helps bring folks out of that older school mentality? Because I find it so ingrained
Hmm.
oftentimes in people, and time certainly is one, or at least consistent inputs over time of various things. But I'm really curious your
Mm.
perspective on that.
Yeah, it's funny because this is like kind of what my pending book is about,
Hmm.
which is like this idea of every so often we when we're going over like a generational crossover, everyone's like, the kids don't want to work, right? They're
Hmm.
lazy, they're entitled, all the things we heard as millennials. And this happens every single cycle.
Yeah.
And it's like, I even hear some millennials saying, like, I don't know how to work with these Gen Zers. I'm like, stop. We are literally like in a cycle that is preventing progress from happening. And yes, we're not all the same. And we all had come from different belief systems. We all went through different life events. I mean, not life events, but like cultural events, right? That happen in the world. Like,
Yeah.
but life stages are very similar. And we have to realize that progress is going to happen. The winds of change are going to happen. And we
Yeah.
may not like everything, but if we could just take our bias out of the equation, really think about what makes sense.
Yeah.
And this is what I've been trying to tell people who, in particular, leaders who are trying to get their people back in offices 5 days a week.
Mm.
It's like, look at the data. Just look at the data.
Yeah.
People are more productive. They're happier. They see it as a perk to work from home. They see it as a perk to work in third spaces, in coffee shops, and to really have agency over their lives.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this comes down to an old school mentality of employer and employee and the power
Mm.
dynamic.
Hmm.
There is an inherent power dynamic. Employer is above, employee is below,
Yeah.
and we tell you what to do. And now that power dynamic is starting to even out and even like tip the other way.
Hmm.
And that's what's causing the anxiety, is like, I don't feel like I have control.
Yeah.
But there are so many ways that you can use things like empathy and talking to your people and understanding what they need to be successful. It doesn't mean you're lacking accountability or you're lacking, like, set clear expectations,
Yeah.
manage those expectations, but also think about the person as a human, what they need to be successful. Like,
Totally.
I think every generation has tried to say that and it shows up just in different language with different things every generation. So it's like, at what point do we just blow it up and really build it more sustainably?
Yeah.
Because right now the workplace culture is just so archaic, and some companies are getting it, but others are just like, we're not going to change, this is who we are.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are just opting out of that right now.
Totally. And they have the ability to, which is great. And you make
Mm-hmm.
such a good point around, and if someone has that feeling of nervousness or fear when that, like you said, that power balance is starting to switch a little bit, or at least at a minimum, even out where, hey, I have just as
Mm-hmm.
much say over whether I like, obviously sometimes you don't. And there's positions where you have to opt for something, which I've empathized with as well. But, it's in a lot of especially business cases, you can say, I have as much agency to say no to this as you do. And when you're interviewing me, I'm also deciding if I want to work for you. And there's just as much conversation around that as opposed to, well, it's a job and I need a job, so I must do it.
Mm.
And I think if you have, if you're a leader listening to this and you have that mentality, if you have that fear that's popping out,
Yes.
that's an opportunity. I mean, I think it's
Yes.
highlighting an area of growth, an area of opportunity. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
need to be this reactive, well, I'm gonna try to make a harsher line between employee or this, or I'm gonna try to just find the perfect person so that they don't think about this stuff or whatever it be. No, I mean, that's gonna continue you down this same exact path. And like you said, progress always wins. Progress will continue to happen, and you're still going to be behind. You're going to be further behind. And so
Mm-hmm.
I see this discomfort that comes with it. And I can empathize on that level too, but
Mm-hmm.
it's an opportunity. It's not a reason to keep doing what you're doing, which is what many people
Yes.
see it as. But no, it's an opportunity
Yes.
to get ahead of the curve, put pieces in place so you don't fall behind.
Mm.
I always like to think about fear as that motivator as opposed to the shrinking motivator.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, to just kind of wrap up for, our conversation thus far, I think what I'm hearing is, wellness is not going anywhere when it comes to kind of the interworkings of even like business operations. When we think about humans at the center of work, we have an opportunity to bring accessibility to some of these tools when it comes to wellness. And we also need to talk to our people. We have to understand what is it that they need. I mean, that's really when we talk about equity. I know like DEI and all the letters are like, at this point buzzwords or everybody hates the words, but when we talk about equity, that's literally what we're talking about is like, what do you need to be most successful? And when we are well, we are most successful. And asking the question is a equity driven way to understand what people maybe don't have access to, what they would like access to, what if we used company time to do something generative that is, to your point earlier, you mentioned like it's not a break, or we're not wasting time, it's actually adding
Mm-hmm.
potential and opportunity to a person's day, and then do that in mass,
Yeah,
and you will see results from that exponentially.
totally.
So I could talk to you all day. Most of my guests I could talk to all day. We could be on here for hours.
Likewise.
But any last thoughts? And then where can people find you if they're like, this sounds great. I would love to partner with Vibrant Yoga and talk about some sustainable ways to bring this into my organization or my event or my business, or,
Yeah.
how can I reach out to you?
Yeah, that's great. I so appreciate this conversation. I also agree I could talk to you forever. And these are the things that, yeah, these are the conversations when we talk about progress that I feel like keeps us ahead of the curve, not from an individualized perspective, but from a societal perspective. And
Hmm.
so I really appreciate you having me on. Yeah, you can find us at vibrant.yoga is our website, and you can find Vibrant Yoga on LinkedIn, on YouTube. We do host monthly live sessions just to the public every month. Next one's on May 16th at noon Central. So that's just if you're looking for a little just 30-minute midday situation, we do that once a month on our YouTube and LinkedIn. And yeah, that's where you can find us.
Awesome. Well, Alex, thank you so much for being so open, sharing some of your thoughts, what you're seeing in this world of workplace wellness. And we'll make sure to put all that information in the show notes so people can reach out to you.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thanks so much, Angela.